Hello everyone, welcome yet again. I am Ashwin Joglekar from Resonance PCCP division. Today I am here with the topic the Delhi Sultans. Now this chapter is from class 7th portion of your history. So let us quickly start with the chapter, that is the Delhi Sultans. Now as you can see here, the Delhi Sultans together was also called the Sultanate period, which started from the slave dynasty. Then came the Khiljis, the Tughlaqs, the Sayyids, and finally the last were the Lodhis. And after that, the last ruler, that is Ibrahim Lodhi, was defeated by Babur in the first battle of Panipat in the year 1526, and from there then we start with the Mughal Empire. Alright, so let us start with the introduction first of all. Delhi has been the capital for many years before Christ. It is located on the banks of river Yamuna, and its location is somewhat similar to the heart in a human body. It was an important trade center as well. Many rulers have had the ambition to control the Indian subcontinent, and that they could only do if they had the control over Delhi. From here, and it has been in the eyes of invaders for centuries. In the previous chapter also, we had seen how Muhammad Ghori made 2 attempts to overcome the forces of Prithviraj Chauhan to establish his kingdom from Delhi. And in this chapter, we will study about the various rulers of the Delhi Sultanate period. The first is the Delhi Sultans, as you can see here, and also you can see the table, the content. Delhi became an important city only in the 12th century. Delhi first became the capital of kingdom under the Tomars or Tomara Rajputs. Alright, who were defeated in the middle of 12th century by the Chauhans, later also known as Chahmanas or Chahmanas of Ajmer. It was under the Tomaras and Chauhans that Delhi became an important commercial center. Then many rich Jain merchants also were there in the city and constructed several temples. Coins minted here were called Delhiwal. The coins which were minted in Delhi or made in Delhi had a wide circulation. The Delhi Sultans built many cities in the area that we know presently as Delhi, and these were Delhi-e-Kunha, Siri and Jahanpana. Now these, you can see the Rajput dynasties, then the early Turkish rulers or the Sultanate period starting from Qutbuddin Aybak, that is in 1206. Then came the Khalji dynasty or the Khilji dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty, Sayyid dynasty, and finally the Lodhi dynasty. Alright, okay. All the inscriptions, coins, how did we have this relevant information about the Delhi Sultans? Although inscriptions, coins and architecture provide a lot of information, especially valuable are the histories, Tariq, that is Tariq or plural form written in Persian language of administration under the Delhi Sultan. So we have some kind of evidences, that is through which we have based this study. The authors of Tariq were learned men, secretaries, administrators, poets and courtiers in the darbars, who both recounted events and advised rulers on governance, emphasizing the importance of just rule. Following are the additional details, that is the authors of Tariq lived in cities, mainly Delhi, and hardly ever in villages. They often wrote their histories for sultans in the hope of rich rewards. These authors advised rulers on the need to preserve an ideal social order based on birthright and gender distinctions that were prevalent in the society at that time. Their ideas were not shared by everybody. In 1236, Sultan Iltutmish's daughter Razia became the Sultan. Now this was not liked by everyone, alright, at that time. So now coming to the rulers, which all rulers were there under the Delhi Sultanate, and we will be looking them accordingly as per the dynasty as well as the rulers of that particular dynasty. So beginning with the slave dynasty, that is the first one who he was himself a slave, and Qutbuddin Aybak, he established the slave dynasty in 1206, but he only ruled for 4 years, that is till 1210. The slave dynasty was founded by Qutbuddin Aybak. He was one of the generals, slave who became general of Muhammad Ghori. It was also known as the Mamluk dynasty, and Qutbuddin Aybak was a generous man, thus gaining the name of Lakh Baksh or giver of lakhs. That was his name also. He built a famous Quwwat-ul-Islam mosque at Delhi. Again, he also started the construction of the famous Qutb Minar, as you can see here in the picture, at present day Mehrauli in New Delhi. Later on, it was completed by his son Iltutmish. Now, Next is Iltutmish, who was the son-in-law of Kutubuddin Aibak. Iltutmish, the son-in-law of Aibak, came to the throne after defeating Aibak's son. He brought Ranthambore, Gwalior, Malwa, Ujjain and even Bihar and Bengal under his control. He is said to be the greatest ruler of this dynasty and was able to ward off the Mongol attacks during his time on India led by Genghis Khan. This he did by refusing to give shelter to the Shah of Iran, who was being chased by the Mongols, and he also started the Iqta system. Now his daughter, that is Razia Sultan, next became the ruler. Razia Sultan, Iltutmish's daughter, was nominated as the successor by him, as he did not consider any of his sons worthy of becoming or occupying or sitting on the throne. The chronicler of the age, who was Minhaj-e-Siraj, recognized that she was more able and qualified than all her brothers, but they were not comfortable at having a queen as ruler, nor were the nobles happy at her attempts to rule independently. So that is why she faced a lot of discrimination within the empire itself. She was removed from the throne, and she was said to be the first and last Muslim lady to sit on the throne. Now this is a short statement about how Minhaj-e-Siraj thought about Razia. Minhaj-e-Siraj thought that the queen's rule went against the ideal social order created by God, in which women were supposed to be subordinate to men. So that is what his belief is. He therefore asked, in the register of God's creation, since her account did not fall under the column of men, how did she gain from all of her excellent qualities? So that is what, like, how did she get all the qualities which are better than her brothers, and she is the rightful chosen person by her father. Now next is Ghiyasuddin Balban. Now after becoming the Sultan, Balban faced many problems. He adopted the following measures to consolidate his position. That is, centralize the administration and reorganize this army, built new forts and repaired the old ones, introduced a set of court etiquettes like practice of sajda, where the nobles had to kneel and touch the ground with their forehead, and a salute to the Sultan in order to establish his supremacy in front of the nobles. No one was supposed to laugh or even smile while at the court. The nobles were neither allowed to drink nor to attend parties. Now after him comes the Khilji dynasty, and the first ruler is Jalaluddin Khilji. He overthrew the last slave king and set up the Khilji dynasty, that is in 1220. But he was also there for 6 years, and after that Alauddin Khilji took over. Now Alauddin Khilji was a famous Khilji king who wanted to conquer the whole of India. That was his ambition. To achieve his aim, he had to curb the power of the nobles and had to win them over. He had to repulse the Mongols' invasions and to conquer the Deccan and Rajasthan. For this, he needed a strong army. That meant more revenue was needed. He thus regulated the market economy for this. That is, regulation of the market economy. We shall study about his economic reforms in the later section of the chapter. Now this is what his campaigns to South India were. From Delhi he started Ranthambore, Chittor, Gujarat, Mandu, Kara, Warangal, Hosails and Thanjavur and Madurai. Alright. Now his market control policy. Alauddin was ambitious and powerful ruler. His ambitious conquest required a large standing army. To maintain, if you need a standing army, you need to maintain that army as well, and you need to pay them, pay the soldiers. To maintain the army, he needed large revenues for costly items such as imported horses. He adopted a bold market control policy and controlled the prices of all commodities. Food, grains, cattle, slaves, imported cloths, etc. Everything was controlled, or that is, the price was controlled. The writing of contemporary historians of that time or the period provide us with immense information about policies and different measures of rulers. The Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi of Baroni informs us that Alauddin Khilji set up 3 markets at Delhi. One for food grains, one for horses and slaves and cattle, and the third for the costly articles such as imported cloths. The prices were fixed and were kept extremely low. The Sultan made arrangements for government to buy all excess non-perishable commodities which are not perishable, and these were then stored in granaries, then could be used later. A strict watch was kept over buying and selling, and anyone cheating in price or weight was severely punished. So strict rules were put into place. Baroni again gives us the prices of all commodities in detail. The merchants had to register themselves and enter into an agreement with the state. Hoarding, that is stopping of supplies or black marketing, was prohibited. An official called Shahnai-Mandi was in charge of each market. The soldiers and the civil population greatly benefited from these measures because they could get commodities at a cheap or low price. It is not clear whether these regulations were applied only to Delhi or also to other towns of his empire. Then comes as the agriculture reforms. Alauddin also undertook some agriculture measures as well. That is, cultivated land was assessed in the Doab area. Doab is again these two words you can separate them. That is, do ke liye aapka two and ab means water. So area or land drained by the waters of 2 rivers, and land that will be fertile. So, and land revenue was assessed on the basis of actual produce, what was being produced. The Doab was the fertile region between the Ganga and the Yamuna rivers, and the revenue collected was half of the produce in this region. So, revenue which was collected was half of what was produced. It meant that rich people could not pass on their share of the tax to the poor. Also, revenue in the Doab area was collected directly by the state, that is through special officers which were called amils, which were appointed by the Sultan, and not by feudatories or the intermediaries as was done earlier. So now again the tax is directly being collected by the state. So there are no intermediaries or in between people here. This direct collection brought the king closer to the peasants and the rural areas. The government itself set up warehouses where food grains that had been stocked were released when needed. For example, in case of famines or droughts. Famines, that is when there was an adverse situation which was created, सूखा पड़ गया, अकाल पड़ गया, ठीक है, ऐसे situations में. Then also he cultivated army reforms also to improve the efficiency of the army, because he needed a large standing army for his successful campaigns all over India. To improve the efficiency of the army, the prices of horses were controlled. Horses again were branded, that is dag, and so that they could not be changed during the times of war. Also, a descriptive role of every soldier, hulia, was kept so that there was no substitution, that sending someone else in someone else's place. He had a very well organized spy system also to keep him informed of what was happening in the kingdom, in the empire, what his nobles were doing, what his feudatories were doing. A strict review of the army and weapons was carried on from time to time. Nobility, to check the rising power of the nobles, he took a number of steps. Example, grants to nobles were abolished. The grants or money which was given, or rewards which were given to nobles, was now abolished. Their taxes were increased so that they will have less of money to invest in probably some schemes. Private property was abolished. Gambling or drinking parties without the Sultan's permission were disallowed. An efficient against spy system was maintained that helped to check disloyalty. Now, ulemas were the Muslim priests, again were not allowed to interfere in administration of the empire as earlier. Were not allowed to interfere in administration of the empire as earlier. Justice, the Sultan was the highest court of justice, and he often announced justice in an open court. Alauddin had under him the chief Qazi, who in turn was assisted by other officials as well. This justice was efficient and prompt, fast and effective. Alauddin established a large kingdom and became powerful. His rule, however, alienated many landlords and officials because of his strict policies. After his death, the dynasty did not last long, and in 1320, the last Khilji ruler was killed and they were replaced by another family, that is the Tughlaqs, who began to rule from Delhi. That is what we move on to now, the Tughlaqs. You can read here about Malik Kafur. Okay. Now, from garrison town to empire, that is in the early 13th century, the control of the Delhi Sultans rarely went beyond the heavily fortified towns which were occupied by garrisons, where they have army in place. The Sultans seldom controlled the hinterland, that is the outer spaces of the cities, and were therefore dependent upon trade and tribute or plunder for supplies. Now, controlling garrison towns in distant Bengal, Sindh from Delhi was extremely difficult. Rebellion, war, even bad weather could snap fragile communication routes. Delhi's authority was also challenged by Mongol invasions from Afghanistan and by governors who were rebelling at any signs of Sultan's weakness. The Sultanate barely survived these challenges. Its expansion occurred during the reigns of Ghiyasuddin Balban, Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq. The second expansion occurred along the external frontier to the Sultanate, that is military expeditions into the southern India started during the reign of Alauddin Khilji and culminated with Muhammad Tughlaq. In their campaigns, Sultanate armies captured elephants, horses and slaves and carried away precious metals. By the end of Muhammad Tughlaq's reign, 150 years after somewhat humble beginnings, the armies of Delhi Sultanate had marched across a large part of the subcontinent. They had defeated rival armies and seized cities, and the Sultanate collected taxes from the peasantry and dispensed justice in its realm or area under its jurisdiction. So that is how from garrison town to an empire, how it evolved. Okay, that is one point. Now we'll move on now to the Tughlaqs. All right. So the first one here mentioned is Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, 1322-24, again ruled for a short period. Founder of the Tughlaq dynasty, he restored law and order and strengthened the frontiers of his state empire. Then Muhammad bin Tughlaq, the most famous ruler of this dynasty was the ruler Muhammad bin Tughlaq. It is said that he was a brilliant man with ideas far ahead of his time, but he was not practical and thus most of his plans failed. He was also known as the mixture of opposites. This made him unpopular among the people as they failed to appreciate his vision. Thus often Muhammad bin Tughlaq had been called a wise fool. Some of the measures undertaken by him were: he increased taxation in the Doab region at the time of drought. So actually he wanted to increase taxation because Doab is a fertile area. So he thought he will benefit from it, but he increased at the time when there was a drought. Alright. He shifted or tried to shift his capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, but again cancelled it. He introduced token currency in the form of copper and brass. So that was again a measure which was not really good enough. Then comes his Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Now Firoz Shah Tughlaq was a cousin of Muhammad bin Tughlaq and was the next sultan. Since the various measures adopted by Muhammad bin Tughlaq had displeased the ulemas and the nobility, Firoz adopted measures to appease the ulemas and the nobles, that is to pacify them. Now welfare schemes, he introduced a number of welfare schemes for the people, that is irrigation systems were improved and many new canals and wells were dug, leading to an improvement in agriculture. So that's a good point. Unjust laws were done away with, which are not good. Unpopular laws. Many new towns were built like Hisar, Firozpur, Jaunpur and Firozabad. Hospitals for free treatment were built for the people. A number of palaces, rest houses, tombs and gardens were also made, and a number of schools or madrasas were built to encourage education among the common people. And many Hindu religions or religious works were translated from Sanskrit into Persian also during this period. Number of revenue reforms as well were taken. Also the taxes allowed by the Islamic law were imposed and all other taxes were abolished. One of these taxes was the jizya, a tax which was paid by non-Muslims in an Islamic state. So that was also. Now Timur's invasion, we will see that again gave a severe blow to the country. Okay, then comes his Sayyids, that is the next dynasty in line after Tughlaq. Okay. Now Sayyids, again 1414 to 51. On leaving India, that is okay, so we should first check this one first so that it will be connected with that. Okay, so now after Tughlaq, that is during this time 1388, there was an invasion by Timur. Timur's invasion gave a severe blow to Tughlaq rule in 1398, and he was a Turkish chief who ruled over a large empire of Central Asia. He attacked Delhi and plundered it and ordered a general massacre and ruined the city of Delhi. He took away major wealth of India to Central Asia. On leaving India, Timur appointed Khizr Khan Sayyid as the governor of Multan and Sindh. Khizr Khan invaded Delhi in 1414 and became its master, but he did not claim to be a sovereign ruler. His three successors were Mubarak Shah, Muhammad Shah and Alauddin Alam Shah, ruled as sovereign rulers later on. This dynasty lasted from 1414 to 51, but all the rulers were weak and incompetent. That is, they could not spread the empire further. In 1451, an Afghan noble Bahlol Lodi overthrew the Sayyid dynasty and established the Lodi dynasty. Now this comes, this is the last dynasty in the Sultanate period. Okay. Now starting with Bahlol Lodi, 1451 to 1809. Bahlol Lodi was the founder of the Lodi dynasty who ruled for 39 years, and his most important achievement was the conquest of Shariki kingdom of Jaunpur in 1494. All right. I guess this date should be wrong. This should not be 1494. This should be something else. Okay. So probably we'll get it corrected. Sikandar Lodi, then 1489 to 1517. That is, among Lodi rulers, Sikandar Lodi was the greatest. He conquered Jaunpur, Bihar and the Ganga Valley. He shifted his capital to a new place called Agra, which is now famous for the Taj Mahal. That is next in line. And then he adopted various measures to improve the agriculture and economy of the country, and which won the loyalty of his people. Next comes is Ibrahim Lodi, and he was the last ruler of this Lodi dynasty. Okay. Ibrahim Lodi 1517 to 26, and Sikandar's successor Ibrahim Lodi failed to gain the support of the Afghan nobles, who started fighting among themselves and also began plotting against the Sultan, that is against Ibrahim Lodi. Now finally Daulat Khan Lodi, the governor of Punjab and uncle of Ibrahim, invited Babur, the king of Kabul, to invade India and overthrow Ibrahim. Babur invaded India in 1526 and founded the Mughal Empire by defeating Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat in 1526. Alright. So this is the first part of the chapter. Hope to see you again for the part 2, that is we will be looking at the administration of Khaljis and Tughlaqs and Mongols and some other